Hey everyone, let's jump right into one of the most incredible chapters in the entire Bible, John, chapter 19. We're going to explore a huge paradox, how the brutal public execution of Jesus on a Roman cross wasn't a defeat at all. In fact, it was the most amazing pre-planned victory in all of history. And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling today. How can a brutal execution possibly be a moment of triumph? It sounds like a complete contradiction, right? Well, stick with me because we're going to unpack this together. So our story kicks off in a super tense place, the courtroom of the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. It's right here, in the middle of all this mockery and political pressure, that we start to see these little glimmers of truth about who Jesus really is. I mean, can you just picture this scene? The soldiers, trying to be cruel and funny, they weave this crown of thorns, throw a purple robe on Jesus, and start mocking him. But here's the crazy irony. In their attempt to humiliate him, they're actually, without knowing it, proclaiming his true identity. He is the King of the Jews. And this wasn't just random, senseless cruelty. The brutal beating, the mocking, all of it was actually predicted hundreds of years earlier by the prophet Isaiah. He wrote, "By his stripes we are healed." This isn't just a coincidence, folks. It's a huge sign that every single moment of this suffering was a deliberate part of a much bigger divine plan. So Pilate tries to flex his authority, reminding Jesus that he has the power of life and death. And Jesus' response is just stunning. He basically tells the most powerful guy in the region, "Your power, you're just borrowing it from a higher authority." With that one sentence, Jesus makes it crystal clear that God is the one who's really in charge, ruling over all human plans. And then, in this final, desperate push to get Jesus crucified, the religious leaders shout this out. This is a jaw-dropping moment. I mean, this is spiritual treason. They are flat out rejecting their long-awaited Messiah and choosing a pagan Roman emperor instead. This seals Jesus' fate on earth, but again, it's all part of the divine plan. Okay, now let's go to the scene of the crucifixion itself, at a place called Golgotha. And what you're going to see is how this instrument of torture, the cross, is totally transformed into a throne of victory, where every single little detail fulfills God's ancient promises. So Pilate puts this sign on the cross, and the religious leaders absolutely hate it. But Pilate refuses to change it, and this is just brilliant, because the sign is written in the three major languages of the world at that time: Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. It was basically a universal press release, a declaration to the entire known world of who Jesus really was. So as Jesus is hanging there, the Roman soldiers do what they always did. They divide up the victim's clothes. They even start gambling for his tunic because it was seamless, all one piece. It seems like such a small, heartless detail in the middle of this massive, world-changing event. But, and this is a huge but, it wasn't a small detail at all. That specific act of gambling for his clothes was a direct fulfillment of a prophecy written in Psalm 22 1,000 years earlier. It just goes to show you that God's control reached down to the tiniest, most seemingly random actions of these soldiers. Nothing was an accident. All right, that brings us to the absolute climax of the story on the cross. We have to look at Jesus' final words because they aren't words of someone who's defeated. They are a shout of total and complete victory. Now, notice how the verse says, "He gave up his spirit." This is so important. His life wasn't taken from him. He was in complete control, and he willingly laid it down at the precise moment his mission was accomplished. And that mission? Well, it was all summed up in his final cry. It is finished. In the original Greek, that word is Tetelestai, and this, right here, is the key that unlocks everything. This wasn't a sigh of, it's finally over. No way. Tetelestai was an accounting term. It's what they would stamp on a bill once it was paid off. It literally means paid in full. This wasn't a cry of defeat, it was a roar of triumph. So what exactly was finished? What was paid in full? Well, the massive debt that all of humanity owed for sin, paid. The perfect requirements of God's law, completely satisfied. And the power that Satan held over people, totally and utterly broken. It was a complete victory on every single front. Now, to prove that he was actually dead, a soldier pierced his side, and John, who was right there watching, says that blood and water flowed out. This wasn't just a medical fact, it was packed with symbolism. The blood represents the atonement, the payment for our sin, and the water represents the new spiritual life and cleansing that he offers to all of us. So, after the crucifixion, something pretty remarkable happens. The cross, which made Jesus' loudest disciples run and hide in fear, actually gave courage to his secret followers. Two guys who had been secret disciples, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, they step out of the shadows. And get this, Nicodemus brings an unbelievable 100 pounds of expensive spices. 100 pounds. This wasn't just a normal burial. This was an extravagant burial, the kind you'd give to a king. And, you guessed it, even this was a fulfillment of prophecy. They laid Jesus in Joseph's brand new, unused tomb. The prophet Isaiah wrote over 700 years earlier that the Messiah would be with the rich in his death. Every detail, from start to finish, was perfectly in place. Okay, so we've walked through this incredible piece of history, but this isn't just some ancient story. The victory that was won on that cross has huge implications for you and for me, right here, right now, in our everyday lives. You know, the biggest takeaway from all of this is the absolute control of God. The darkest moment in human history, the murder of God's own son, was actually the very thing God used to bring about the greatest good for all humanity. It's this incredible reminder that God is in control, even when things look like they're completely falling apart. So how do we actually apply this? Well, it's pretty simple. First, trust that God is in control. If he was sovereign over something as chaotic as the cross, he's sovereign over your life too. Second, you can stop striving. The work is done. The price is paid. You don't have to earn God's love. And third, all you have to do is receive this amazing gift by faith. That's it. And so this is the final thought I really want to leave you with. If the work is truly paid in full, if the victory is already won, how does that change the way you're going to face your challenges tomorrow? Now, to really help all these concepts sink in, be sure to use the flashcards to review the key terms we talked about, and then go ahead and take the quiz. When you pass it, you'll mark this whole lesson as complete. This has been a presentation by the You Need Faith in Jesus team. Thanks so much for joining us.